Evil.
So it was a swimming accident that led to your total paralysis,
Right.
quadriplegic, and in that realization that your life is forever changed, at one point you thought you were living a dream, that this is going to go away?
I realized I created this nightmare for myself. You know, I thought I had all the answers. Well, you know, you got a set of rules, and I was brought up Catholic, and I broke all the rules, put it that way.
And I was working in a hospital and really searching for spiritual guidance, and every day I worked 2 to 11, which was the hospital where I met Charlie. And
I wasn't connected to God. I was, if anything, fighting God. That's one of the things I realized when I was laying in bed, that I am not a material being. My essence, my capacity for love, my capacity for courage, my capacity for strength was never touched.
I had to stay and help him. I couldn't work, although I was a lawyer. And so we really turned to God, and that's when we really found Christian Science, right at that point, when we were really at the bottom of the barrel. That was when we totally turned to it.
Did you ever ask yourself what kind of God would allow you to jump into some water where you broke your neck and stayed paralyzed for the rest of your life?
That's when I realized it wasn't God.
You know, wherever I'd go with Charlie, he was a superstar, you know, and I was just a shadow of Charlie. But, you know, here I was with, you know, an Ivy League college, 5 years of grad school. I worked my way through. My family encouraged me to the nth degree and made me feel like I was so smart, and, you know, and I think I really needed some humbling.
I've been blessed. Everything's a blessing. I mean, trees are things that I would totally ignore or didn't even know were blessings.
Charlie Ekizian loves the water. He has to work hard to reach it, but his reward is replacing a wheelchair with a rowing shell. It's a freedom he enjoys so much, he teaches others how to do it.
Rowing is, a lot of times, there's a lot of fear involved in just getting into the boat. And I go along with them, and they watch me and they go, well, hell, if he can do it, you know, let me try it. So we go on from there.
Whether it's counseling or coaching, Charlie Ekizian is an expert in the fundamentals of strength, of the upper body and the spirit.
This is such an overpowering thing to go through, and if I can help somebody alleviate some of the bumps and the stress of it, it's rewarding to me. It turns out everything's an expression of love.
Well, I feel God is polishing me, you know, and I feel like what people might call hellfire is really burning away the things that need to be burned away to make you a better reflection of God. God gives us spiritual goals. We don't reach them all in one fell swoop, but maybe one by one, little by little, life's path teaches us, you know, and if we put ourselves on that path and let God hammer out all the faults we have and so on, it's still going on very much. Life is still a struggle in many ways, but it's a learning struggle.
Like I'm trying to compete.
Decades ago, Charlie Ekizian nearly died in a swimming accident that left him paralyzed for the rest of his life. This is the story of how a strong-willed Boston neighborhood boy entered the fight for his life, his spiritual life, and how Danielle Ekizian came along at exactly the right moment. This is a shared journey of courage, pain, revelation, and spiritual discovery, and eventually recovery, which for many is part of an ongoing process. It's also the story of Christian Science and A Course in Miracles, and the never-absent guidance of higher consciousness. Welcome to Souljourns. This interview was recorded over a several-month period in 2011 in Destin, Florida. Charlie Ekizian, this is really a pleasure to talk, and I want to begin by actually talking about the book you're writing. I'm intrigued by its title, and I'm really interested by its subject. God is First. How is God first for Charlie?
Well, to me, it's like when the stewardess in the plane says to if there's an emergency and the masks drop, the first thing you do, the first thing the mother wants to do is throw the mask on the child. Well, they tell her, do not do that. First, put the mask on you. Make sure the mask is secure on you, because if you pass out, you can't help the child. So it's important that you put the mask on first. And that's the premise of always putting God first.
When did this first dawn on you? I mean, you're a strong man. You were raised in a rough and tumble part of Boston. You had to probably fight your way through one argument after another, in which God likely wasn't part of that or first in it.
Right.
When did that notion of God first seriously dawn on you, and how?
Well, actually, I spent a lot of time being paralyzed, totally paralyzed, not moving anything. And I laid and I used to count the holes in the ceiling and things like that. And it came to me that a lot of things came to me. It came to me that this was a dream. Well, at this point, it was a nightmare. And I realized I put myself in this nightmare. A lot of people said, oh my gosh, God, you know, they were upset with God, and they were upset that, you know, this happened to them, and they sort of blamed God. And I knew God was of pure eyes behold evil.
So it was a swimming accident that led to your total paralysis,
Right.
quadriplegic, and in that realization that your life is forever changed, at one point you thought you were living a dream, that this is going to go away?
I realized I created this nightmare for myself. I probably, you know, well, you know, you got a set of rules, and I was brought up Catholic, and I broke all the rules, put it that way, and you know, I had a lot of guilt.
So it was a dream that you saw, that you later come to accept as reality, and that for Charlie, the reality of life was going to be really forever changed as it is for anybody else.
Right, and I realized, you know, I thought I had all the answers. I was probably an alpha male, thinking, and the one thing I never wanted to do was bully people, because growing up, I was bullied for a long time. All of a sudden, I reached 15 or something, and I couldn't get enough food in me, and I started developing, and my father and his cousin, who was actually my second cousin, where he was a world champion wrestler. My father was one of these men who never exercised a day in his life, and he could pick up a car like a toy. And you know, I don't know, all of a sudden I started, you know.
You said you were raised Catholic, but am I to conclude that maybe God wasn't first or even second in your life?
No, and I went through all the Christian doctrine classes, and one of the things about Catholicism back then, a lot of it was Latin, so it just totally went over my head. I was like, I don't know what they're talking about. Plus, I go through all these Christian doctrine classes, and it was like kind of in a control. Back then, I'm not saying it, I see a big change in Catholicism now, but you had to totally, you could not even, they didn't even want you talking to a Protestant or any, you know, or any other type of...
So you had that baggage to overcome.
I had that baggage, plus I said, what kind of God would send you to hell for eating meat on Friday?
Did you ever ask yourself what kind of God would allow you to jump into some water where you broke your neck and stayed paralyzed for the rest of your life?
That's when I realized it wasn't God. You know, I was in a serious state of well, I don't know how to say it. I was like I thought I was the sane one in the asylum, but I realized things I was doing was pretty crazy, and a lot of them was very self-destructive.
Help me out here, Charlie, because I'm guessing that you're one of the lucky ones in that you came to realize that it wasn't God's fault. But might there be cases that you know of personally where people coming through similar mishaps still blame God for that?
Yeah, and it was sad because that was the one thing I tried to get through to people, and I wasn't too successful.
Well, how did you get through to yourself? How did you bring that transformation into your own awareness?
Well, you know, I thought about this too, and I realized I was not as a grown-up Catholic, I didn't know anything about the Bible, and I didn't understand, you know, I didn't understand what was going on, but I felt that I was made in God's image and likeness, but it had nothing to do with the physical. It had to do with the spiritual, and I realized my spirituality was not what it should be. I wasn't connected to God. I was, if anything, fighting God. You know, I like when I was standing on that rock, I had this really bad feeling. Now, I used to dive off of quarries. My friends wouldn't even go to the edge, and I'd have to throw a rock off first to break the surface of the water. Otherwise, I was up so high that otherwise, if I hit the water, it would be like hitting cement.
Really? You had to have a ripple in the water?
I had to have a ripple in the water. It's just like the, you know, cliff divers in Acapulco. They have to wait for the wave and time it. And if they time it wrong, they're going to hit the bottom.
Do you call that courage, or what do you call that?
I call that insanity, actually, but now that I think about it. And it's false courage. I mean, animal courage. Not almost like self-destructive.
Well, it is self-destructive for a lot of people. You are the shining example, or exception, I might say, because I know a little bit about your background. I know how hard it's made you work to compensate in so many different directions, on so many different levels. Where did that gift or that push come from? Do you have a guardian angel that was ready to recruit you as working double time from that point forward after the accident, or what?
Well, it wasn't right after the accident, but yeah, her name was Danielle Ekizian. Well, at that point it was Linda's staff, but she
So you got her to change her first name and her last name.
Yeah.
Danielle, I didn't mean to cut Charlie off there, but I want to hear your part of the story at this point. How have you managed all these years? First of all, how long have you two been married?
We've been together, since we were married in 1977, so 34 years, 33 or 34 years.
You're not on the microphone.
Oh yeah, actually, yeah, I had my own apartment, but I spent a lot of time in his apartment for a couple of years before we got married. And when I was in law school, I used to take his T-shirts home with me, so I would feel.
Well, right off the bat, where has faith factored in a path that almost none of us can relate to because of the challenges the two of you faced physiologically and spiritually, because you both belong to a religion that doesn't embrace modern medicine?
Yeah. Well, I think whatever I am, God led me there step by step. The only thing I know that I did really willfully, consciously, was when I was 5 or 6 years old, my Calvary Baptist minister told us that we should pray alone with God. We should pray and ask Jesus to come into our heart, which I did when I was probably 4 or 5 years old. And I really felt a stirring and a peace that really, I think now it's like the grain of mustard seed. I felt it growing over the years. You know, I don't know how to describe it, but I would be alone sitting, you know, just sitting like this outdoors, and all of a sudden I'd feel this peace come to me that I related to God. I just felt God's presence with me. And, you know, I came from a family that was really performance-oriented and probably because I was born with birth defects, you know, they encouraged me a lot to pursue academic, but you know, I really wasn't there. My real life was in God.
Well, your real life in God changed flavors, let's say, a few times, because you went from your Christian heritage that I presume you were born into Christian Science. Now, oh, you didn't?
Oh, no, I was you know, that was the Calvary Baptist minister who told me to pray. You know, I found him since to thank him for that. But yeah, my mom was raised in a Episcopal boarding school. She lost her mom at an early age, and she and her sister went to Episcopal boarding school, and every night she would pray with me and sing hymns with me before I went to bed. And so, but we visited different Christian churches, and I didn't find Christian Science till the time when I was curious about different things, but Christian Science had a stigma about it. You know, if my parents knew other little girls I might be friends with who were Christian Scientists, they'd say, well, that's a little strange, we don't know about that. So I always had this sense that, you know, maybe it was a cult or something strange,
but
or
nonetheless
people who
something
did
drew you to
odd. I'm sorry.
Nonetheless, something big drew you to it. Can you refer to it in one or two points?
Well, my mom actually killed herself in 1971 or so, and I was working in a hospital and really searching for spiritual guidance, and every day I worked 2 to 11, which was the hospital where I met Charlie, and when it was time for my break or my dinner, I'd go to the chapel and pray. And when I met Charlie, I really felt it was an answer to prayer. I've been dating all kinds of people, sophisticated people, highly educated people, and Charlie had no education past high school, but he had, I think he had more of a link to God, but whatever it was, I felt he was the one for me at that point. And I'd go to his family picnics and all, and we both found out together about his grandfather. His grandfather, who had given up the doctors. He had immigrated to this country and couldn't speak any English from Armenia when he was 16. He was really a self-made man. And he found Christian Science. And when I found out about that, I became a little more interested. And I was a lawyer at that point, so there was a Christian Science reading room right next to the courthouse. And on my breaks, I'd go over and I'd read Science and Health in the Bible and the lesson they put out there. And in the beginning, I thought, well, no, this can't be right. They're taking a section here and a section there and putting them together. And, you know, I was always a free thinker. Like him, I didn't believe in going along with conventional wisdom. I'd always pray to know what to do, or else I'd rebel and feel like I was going to do it the way I thought. So I resisted. I was just, you know, the plane. I resisted a lot in the beginning, but I was more and more drawn to it, you know, and the more I read it, the more I felt as you live it, it becomes clearer to you. You know, you don't understand it if you just read it, but if you take it in and follow it and live it, it proves itself to be the truth.
So how does it differentiate itself mostly in your mind from most Christian denominations?
Well, I think Christian Scientists strive really hard to follow the first commandment. You know, and if there's something else leading you, you know it's not God. You try to, and God is defined as love, truth, mind, soul, spirit, principle.
Well, those are all tenets of what I met you about, and that's the Course in Miracles class, and you preceded me presumably by years and years. So how does something as open as A Course in Miracles and Christian Science and your unique challenges for the two of you go hand in hand?
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't quite understand.
Well, what you're talking about in defining Christian Science reminds me of A Course in Miracles, which is a study group that you and I are in.
Yeah.
How are they related? Because it sounds like they must be in many ways, or you wouldn't be in A Course in Miracles class.
Well, I'm not sure I totally understand A Course in Miracles at this point. I love the people in it. I love, you know, some of the things I've heard. And I know it was, she said it was channeled from God, and so is Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures. But I think it is different because Mrs. Eddy, I know that one of the basic tenets of Course in Miracles is forgiveness. And Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures by Mary Baker Eddy, also channeled from God, doesn't talk about forgiveness much at all. It says God forgives sin as we forsake sin. But when we're on the spiritual path and when we acknowledge and realize that we're made in God's image and likeness, perfect, then we see, there's a quote in the Bible that says, God is of purer eyes than to behold evil. We and all God's creation don't need forgiveness because we're all perfect already.
Mm-hmm.
And
that is what the Course in Miracles says also.
Right.
How did you and Charlie, in your many years together now, since the early 70s, benefit from your spiritual beliefs?
Well, in just so many ways. I think it lifts your life, you know, financially, incredibly, because we went through a period where neither one of us was working. He was really struggling. He would actually, to human sense, it seemed he either had a total emotional burnout 4 or 5 years after his injury. No, wait, it was more like 12 years after his injury. He was working double shifts. He was on every committee. He was taking people out to help disabled people at the hospital where he worked. He was handling a marriage, and he had a nervous breakdown, really. And we were both, I had to stay and help him. I couldn't work, although I was a lawyer. And so we really turned to God, and that's when we really found Christian Science, right at that point, when we were really at the bottom of the barrel. That was when we totally turned to it. And we had no means to live, you know, financially. A lot of people think if you're disabled, the government's taking care of you. That's not the case. You know, we've always paid taxes, we've always worked, but at that point, I realized I was being governed by fear because I was collecting big containers full of beans and rice in case we didn't have money to buy groceries, dried foods, you know. I was, and I realized I was being governed by fear, and I didn't like that at all, and I decided, no, I'm not going that route.
So did you both find pretty much at the same time in your history together, your turnaround?
We did.
Go back to your original question about the points you were making to me, the original points about the difference between mainstream Christianity, and that's probably the incorrect way of saying it, and Christian Science.
Yeah.
Because it really does seem to play a huge factor for both of you.
Yeah, well, in Christian Science, there's only one mind, God. And the human mind is really, a lot of people don't understand right away. They think the human mind might be a help along the way. You know, you can turn to what would Jesus do sort of thing and think it out, you know, what seems to be the most loving thing to do. But in Christian Science, mind might tell you something to do that doesn't seem like the most loving thing to you at the time. But if it's mind directing you, it is the most loving, healing step to take. So we learn to try to put the human mind out of the picture and turn more and more to listening to God. And we do that through, they do it through, a lot of healings come about just through reading Science and Health with Key to the Scripture, because so much of the truths that are imparted in there are truths from Divine Mind that came to Mrs. Eddy. And if you keep your mind lifted to those truths, it's easier and easier to divest yourself of all these false beliefs that masquerade as truth.
Well, that's a good question. That's a good answer to the question I was thinking about just when you started talking about this, because Charlie picked up on this too. First of all, his wonderful story about how he famously or infamously did not listen to that still small voice. And then he mentioned also about how learning to listen to that voice is so important. A little bit from you too, Danielle, about how do you do that day in and day out throughout the day with major as well as small problems that cross your path?
Yeah, I had a lot of problems with that. I mean, I had a lot of caregivers, and I'm no exception, you know, feel really overwhelmed at times by situations that you're in, and a lot of times you are handling it alone. And so I went to a Christian Science practitioner who I dearly loved and said, I really don't have time to do the reading and the prayer that I should be doing, and I feel like I'm overwhelmed, and what do I do? And she said, just pray moment by moment. You know, pray when you're washing the dishes, pray when you're, whatever you're doing, try to turn your thought to God. And that was a big step forward.
And that's worked for you?
Yeah, and I found this book, The Practice of the Presence of God, written in the Middle Ages by Brother Lawrence, I think. And that talks about that in great detail. So I'm not saying the truth is just totally, Christian Science has a corner on truth, because it's in every religion.
Well, Danielle means God is the judge, and she came up with that herself. Being a lawyer, she wanted to stand for that. God is the judge.
So you did have help, but in addition to that guardian angel named Linda who became Danielle, it sounds like you must have had some sort of spiritual awakening all on Charlie's part too.
Well, the other thing that happened to me that was really meaningful was all the people around me. I mean, there was nurses, there was therapists that reflected so much love. I mean, they would take me out. They say, hey, we're going to go so-and-so, you know, let's get you a pass and come with us. And that meant so much to me. And I thought, who are these people, you know? I mean,
it also had to mean something to you on another level too, because many people who come through what you came through, even people who didn't have to go through what you came through, in my estimation, I don't see their easy ability to accept love because they don't recognize love in themselves.
right.
So you had that in yourself first.
Well, actually, you know what? I didn't. And well, I did to a point, but I mean, when I had my injury, I thought to myself, you know, I kind of had a good aware of who I was. All of a sudden, everything that I was starting to feel good about myself. I knew that I had a heart, and I knew, you know, brain-wise, I don't know, I'm not sure about that, but I didn't have a lot of knowledge. I wasn't a student, but I did have a good heart, and I felt good about myself, and or to a point, and then all of that was taken away. I was like, I was
But
like
the foundation was there.
The foundation was there in the beginning, but I was also always trying to fix something. You know, I said, well, you know, I should be more of a student. I shouldn't be, you know, I should do this, I should do that. There was always this I wasn't good enough kind of thing, but the one thing I was I felt was kind of adventurous, and I had this sense of, well, I think I got more of this from my father, even though we never really talked. But this idea that, you know, and he went through so much, and he had cancer of the throat and all this. Never heard him complain. He was always full of jokes. Even when he couldn't speak, he was such a character.
So without learning from his own mouth or his own words, you picked it up because of the way he modeled that stuff?
Yeah, and my mother was a wonderful, wonderful person. But salt of the earth, and she could literally tear you apart verbally, and my father could literally tear you apart physically. So the combination of two of them.
And you were the only child, probably.
I was the only child.
So you had to face danger any day of the week.
Yeah, but what happened was having them as parents and getting their DNA, so to speak, or something, prepared me for almost anything. And they were just such great role models for me.
So
maybe, I was so grateful.
So maybe the idea of your book, God First, starts way back then. I mean, I would think even before you met Danielle, even before your accident, even before you started to realize who Charlie Ekizian was, there might have been some pretty powerful role models in your life that really, I don't want to say they came across as God, because you told me about some of their shortcomings too, but they imparted some pretty powerful lessons for you that took, it seems.
Well, yeah, it gave me the strength to go on. And, well, actually, for a long time, I prayed every day, please. You know, I was bargaining with God. Give me one more. It started off, give me one more year. Then it started.
This is after your accident.
Yeah.
You wanted one more year.
Yeah, just give me one more.
To be a hellraiser.
Yeah, just give me one more hour. One more hour. I'll try to wrap in as much, stuff and of course, in the beginning, it was, I had all these elaborate thoughts. I'll try to get this done and that done. And I got to the point where I just want to walk barefoot in a grassy field. And I was begging God.
Very minimal once after a while.
Yeah, 1 hour. Just let me just do something. Just be able to feel my body again the way it was. Just.
Now, I don't know if that was ever given to you or not, but I know that you could fill a notebook with all the activities and endeavors you've participated in and mastered since the day of your accident. Is there any compensation for you in what you've taught yourself with the help of Danielle and others to accomplish after your accident to make up for that loss?
Yeah, but it's just coming to me now that I truly do love myself. And Danielle's involved in something, and it's called Reconnection. And she did a reconnection on me. When that happened, I realized, I'm looking back at all this, and I realized, and God does the reconnection. It's got nothing to do. The closest I could say to this is like that picture on the Sistine Chapel.
Those two hands coming together.
Adam's finger and God's finger getting ready to. Well, that's the connection. And once that happens, you realize, oh my gosh, I've been blessed. Everything's a blessing. I mean, trees are things that I would totally ignore or didn't even know were blessings. But Danielle said something to me that really meant a lot. In the beginning, I thought, oh my God, is she kidding? But when she was a little child, she would pick up a rock. She'd pick up 2 rocks, and she'd say, take one, oh, this is nice. But she'd apologize to the other one that she had to put it down. And, she didn't want to hurt its feelings.
You chose the other rock.
No, not so much that. It's just that I thought to myself, well, what's a rock? Well, it turns out everything's an expression of love, expression of God. And they've got to the point now where they can break water down and say play real bad rap music or something to the water, and
or speak in an angry tone.
You speak in an angry tone, and it reflects in the molecules, or in the whatever that. So and if they express love, it's a beautiful design.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
What are you going to say? What have you started to say with your book, God First? Well,
just that. Always ask God before you try to, whatever it is you think you want to do, you check with Him first, and believe me, that is not, and I'm still learning that lesson, because I still make stupid mistakes.
Are you practicing your own message? Are you?
I'm trying now, because and since I got reconnected, I feel really excellent about that. I feel like God's with me all the time, and I'm so grateful.
And for a lot of people who don't know this and haven't been practicing it, shed a little light on what it's like to have the awareness that God's listening to you, and sometimes even answering you.
Well, you know, it's being paralyzed. You have no, I don't know, like internal functions that most people, their minds just automatically take care of. Well, my mind might be trying to take care of it, but the communication is cut off, and so the body's on its own. And I was studying Christian Science for a lot of years, and they say be absent from the body and present with divine mind. And I'd always have to try to keep track of what's going on in my body, because I'm out without control of bodily functions. And so I'm always trying to, you know, stay tuned with my body.
You have to stay monitoring it more so than the average person.
Where an average person, would, you know...
the body monitors itself.
Right. They go, oh, wait a minute, I got to go to the bathroom, I got to do this, I got to do that. And I couldn't really get one with God, or really let God totally control myself. Since the reconnection, that's what's happened. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I get all these warnings. I mean, God will tell me, okay, time for you to go. And I go, you sure? Yeah. Okay.
Well, this is a process that I suspect you might suggest that anybody can do if they tune in to their own divine center enough. But both of you are Christian Scientists,
right.
Correct?
And she's been a metaphysician for years, and I've been fortunate, and I've also had one of the best metaphysicians working for me to walk, and he took a big cut in pay to do it, and you know, he was retiring, so he stopped doing it, and that's when all this stuff started happening. And I thought, oh my God, I'm a true quadriplegic now, and I felt like I was on my way out.
So let me ask you a couple of questions. It sounds like, in addition to Danielle and your own growth and many other factors, Christian Science has played a constructive role.
Absolutely.
In your life.
Absolutely. The reason for that is, and the reason I say, all right, Christian Science believes in the first chapter in Genesis, which is we're all made in God's image and likeness. And by the way, I would like to say spirituality, and they call it Father, Mother, God. The mother aspect is mother love. Mother love is the strongest love there is. So that's why we're all made in God's image and likeness, and it's Father, Mother, God. And also, we're all spiritual. We're not made up of... that's one of the things I realized when I was laying in bed, that I am not a material being. That my essence, my capacity for love, my capacity for courage, my capacity for strength was never touched.
You might call that the other Charlie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The higher self, the spiritual aspect of the... Yeah, absolutely.
Why do you suppose it is that this spiritual practice, religious practice, has helped both of you enormously and given you these, what I would call, gifts that I don't know too many other people having? Why is it so misunderstood by other mainstream Christians and non-Christians alike? Well,
you know, they say everything changes, yet it stays the same. This is just as attacked as when Jesus first announced it. And what it is based on Jesus' healings, the way he healed. He saw as God saw, which is the opposite of material being. The second chapter in Genesis is the material evidence where, and part of the problem is a lot of Christians blame Eve for our faults, and they will not follow a woman, which because of that or whatever, I don't know. There's a lot of through the world. There's a lot of like the feminine quality, the feminine qualities,
discrimination.
Right, the feminine qualities aren't honored like they should be.
And Mary Baker Eddy probably had more than a little difficulty getting any of her, not just revelations, but ideas, her intellectual understandings understood.
Well, she had no intellectual understanding. She said that if people want to read Science and Health, that was all dictated to her. Mm-hmm. In her days, she wasn't even allowed to go to college. She wasn't allowed to vote.
So it was all revelation for her.
It's all revelation,
and she was
it went
just the
worldwide.
Conduit.
Yeah.
So you should be.
I'm just going to say there's books and books of incredible healing.
I would think you would be one of the top 10 poster childs for Christian Science because of what you've come through and where your spiritual consciousness has evolved to.
Well, a lot of times people look at the material picture. You know, even Christian scientists still come up to me and say, "You'll be healed one day." I'm perfect right here and now. I'm sorry, and there is only now.
So, Charlie, what's it about? Why are you here? Where are you going?
Well, all I want to do is God's will. And after a while, I stopped asking. Now, please heal me. Because Paul, one of Jesus' most devout disciples, had a thorn in the flesh. He asked to please have it removed. I don't know what it was, but whatever it was. And he used to say things like, well, the things I don't want to do, I end up doing, and the things I do want to do, I end up not doing. So it was like line upon line, precept upon precept. It's a growing thing, but all I want to do is God's will, whatever that is.
Well, my God feels like a very loving, caring, attentive, strong, powerful, omnipresent Father, Mother.
And when something happens in your life that you don't agree with and causes pain, do you still have those same views?
Well, I feel God is polishing me, and I feel like what people might call hellfire is really burning away the things that need to be burned away to make you a better reflection of God.
Now
so I try to think along those lines.
That can be, for some people who haven't been tested, a form of spiritual lip service, but I somehow don't believe that's lip service coming from you and from Charlie.
I mean, there have been so many, I think this was in a recent conversation I had with Charlie. Wherever I'd go with Charlie, he was a superstar, and I was just a shadow of Charlie. But, here I was with, an Ivy League college, 5 years of grad school. I worked my way through. My family encouraged me to the nth degree and made me feel like I was so smart. And, and I think I really needed some humbling.
You went to Wellesley?
Yeah.
And you knew what you wanted to do from day one?
Well, I knew I wanted to be a professional, a doctor or a lawyer.
So you put yourself on that path. Did you have much of a spiritual bent about you at that young age?
Well, I almost majored in religion. Yeah, I did. At the last minute, I changed to something else. So I always had God in my life, but my family are not strongly religious. My mom passed on, but she had her struggles with God, but she was brought up pretty religious, and I think that's how I developed along those lines.
And
initially.
I had a question that just came to me intuitively. I'm not quite sure where it came from. I'd like to just conclude this with, and that is, I think a lot of people fall into trap who might be seeing this of believing that here are people who come from the school of hard knocks, lots of good education, lots of serious challenges, lots of spiritual growth, and they're there. Look at them. They're there. My gut tells me that this sort of spiritual school of learning higher lessons never ends. How do you look at this?
Oh, very much so. Well, as I was just saying, I finally feel that humility is the most important Christian virtue there is. To me, if I look at someone with humility, they're the most beautiful person I ever saw. And I feel like God gives us spiritual goals. We don't reach them all in one fell swoop, but maybe one by one, little by little, life's path teaches us, you know, and if we put ourselves on that path and let God hammer out all the faults we have and so on, it's still going on very much. Life is still a struggle in many ways.
It's just recently that I really feel love for myself, because, and it's not for me, I'm not loving me, I'm loving the God in me.
So I don't want to miss this. How many years have you been in this physical state since the accident?
43.
43 years. And you're telling me that with all the growth and all the lessons and all the love from all the people who have taught you to love yourself, that it's just recently?
Yeah, well, I just got reconnected to my source. Even though when I first found Christan Science, I felt that. I felt that, but then it's a study and it's constant. And they say you got to keep reading. I've never been a student, and that's one of my problems. Because I in the beginning, I was absorbing everything, but after a while, my head, you know, my energy levels, I just can't seem to, like, read something. I have to read it like 10 times because all these things are running through my head, and I'm realizing, geez, I just read a chapter. I have no idea what I just read. So.
Well, you better start not just reading more, but writing more, because that book's got to get done, because book 2 is going to be waiting for you. And if you have a camera set up in front of you, as this one is, or books to write after the first one, what is the message? What are some of the lessons that you've had to learn the tough, long, hard way, painful way, that you'd like to be able to pass on to others?
Okay, one is that, like I say, always pray about your actions. And it only takes a second, and if you're connected with God, He'll answer you immediately. But just kind of say, well, am I doing the right thing here? You know, that's all it takes. And believe me, I've done. I'm going to say a quick joke here. I hope I can.
Go ahead.
And this might come off wrong.
Well, give it a try.
All right. Well, one of the shows I used to watch as a kid was Amos and Andy, and they did away with it because the stereotype and all that, and you can't even find it. But I heard something a few years back, and I'm going to do this wrong. I know it, but this guy goes, you there, Kingfish, how you so smart? How you know how to do the right thing? You always do the right thing. Where'd you learn that? And Kingfish goes, well, it's from doing all the wrong things. I learned,
this is a point that's well made. It was only in the last month. I don't know if you saw it, but maybe I can direct it to you. There's a full-fledged documentary on Amos and Andy. Amos and Kingfish, their lessons that they live out in ways that don't look at first blush to make sense, because a lot of mistakes and a lot of results come because of a lot of mistakes. But the conclusion of the documentary and what they really build up to is what you just said. There's so much that's moral that comes from learning lessons the hard way first, that can be imparted to people.
The other thing I'd like to say is, please, femininity is such a beautiful quality. Embrace it. And the yin and the yang, the male and the female, and I mean female, not women trying to be men, and I understand why they would be, because they've been beaten down so bad, but the planet needs the feminine. One of the greatest things about my wife is she was so feminine, even though I beat her down, and I beat some. God, I hope I didn't beat any of it out of her, but I don't
think you did.
Well, she's one of the most feminine people I know, and God bless her for that. And she has taught me so much, and I'm so grateful.
Plus, as you put your finger on it, that yin and yang of life is present in all of us. So you've got that in you too.
Yeah. Well, I'm appreciating. I am again, since I got reconnected, I am so appreciative of the femininity of the yin and the yang.
Well, I'm so appreciative of your ability to really explain these lessons so clearly and so meaningfully for anybody who's present to hear them. And I look forward to sitting down and talk to you again, Charlie, one day. Thank you so much.
Bless you, man.
God bless you.
Thank you for what you're doing, and I love.
Thank you for your achievements that can be traced back to what arguably would be the worst day of your life, and has resulted in so much wonderful enlightenment for yourself and others around you.
Thank you. In closing, I'd like to say, no matter what people do, it's always a blessing, because well, like say, for instance, if Judas didn't do what he did, there wouldn't be a resurrection. Mm-hmm. So no matter what it is, and it may seem horrible at the time, keep loving your heart and bless the person for your sake as well as theirs. And love is important. Love yourself first, and that love spills over, and you know.
Got the message.
Okay.
God
Great.
bless you, Charlie.
Bless you, Ted. Thank you. Water skiing. Now this is you're sitting on a ski. You know, it's I've done it once. I was gonna do it that day, but I don't know. I was having second thoughts after. But I've done it before. It's a wonderful, fun thing. It's a lot of adrenaline and it's exciting. It's exciting.
Well, you really got the speed with this sport. You know, like so much of your time is spent in slow motion, and here you're going
right.
25 miles an hour.
Right, right. Absolutely. At my age, I'm happy with slow motion. That's probably why I stopped doing it. But yeah, this is truly exciting, and it really helps with balance and stuff. If you're a skier, and you can stay up on one of those things, it's pretty exciting. I started feeling pretty comfortable, and I was going to do all these tricks with it, and I let go of it with I forget what I was trying to do, but then I couldn't grab it again because of my hands, and I went down. It was funny, and the guy that was running the boat says, I usually finesse people up, but with your weight, I have to gun the thing. The boat would almost come out of the water. So I definitely emphasize diet as part of a fitness and training program, something I overlooked. And that's one of those mistakes you make along the way. Then you say, well, you learn from them. So I'm right now, my whole life right now is trying to lose weight. But anyway, gives me something to do. This is
He's going to catch a wake here.
Oh yeah. That's yeah. That's what I was trying to do. I was trying to go flipping outside the wake, and I realized the thing pulled right out of my hands. It was funny.
Charlie Ekizian loves the water. He has to work hard to reach it, but his reward is replacing a wheelchair with a rowing shell. It's a freedom he enjoys so much, he teaches others how to do it.
Rowing is, a lot of times, there's a lot of fear involved, and just getting into the boat, and I go along with them, and they watch me and they go, well, hell, if he can do it, let me try it. So we go on from there.
Going on has been especially challenging for Tom Hodgkins. He had serious problems even before the accident that left him paralyzed.
Alcohol was taking over my life and drugs, and I ended up jumping off a boathouse trying to jump into a lake, and I missed the water and hit the dock, and that's how I ended up in the wheelchair.
But Charlie is teaching Tom how to get beyond his disabilities.
You got to turn that oar around, yeah. It's a great cross trainer because you're using the opposite set of muscles than you do to push. You're pulling, and that's real important to strengthen whatever you have so that it can help compensate for some of the stuff you don't have.
What Charlie is passing on to Tom here is much more than just a skill.
I'm paralyzed from the waist down, and he's a little higher up, and I can see how much harder it must be for him. It's still hard for me, and that's what inspires me, is he just keeps on going, he does so many things, and helps so many people.
I remember how you used to take me out on trips and day trips and all that, the mall, remember?
Oh, right. We will.
Amjad Kamal is one of Charlie's old friends at the Spalding Rehabilitation Center, one of many area hospitals where Charlie volunteers.
Got a signal on those stops.
And I had lost everything in my life, and but when I used to see him, I used to watch him. There was little fire which burns inside all of us, and then it just helped me to what I am today. I give him totally the cure of that.
Whether it's counseling or coaching, Charlie Ekizian is an expert in the fundamentals of strength, of the upper body and the spirit.
This is such an overpowering thing to go through, and if I can help somebody alleviate some of the bumps and the stress of it, it's rewarding to me.